We're very excited to be joined by Steve Ewen today. Steve, thank you very much for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm very excited to follow Richie Chambers.
So let's give us a little rundown. Where'd you grow up? What high school did you go to? And how does sport kind of get involved in your life?
I am born in Vancouver, raised in Richmond, went to Matthew McNair, home of Paul Eberhardt, although he was not there. And halfway through my grade 12 year, my parents sat me down and said, either you're going to school or you're getting a job. I said, I'm not getting a job. And Kwantlen College was in Richmond, and I went and got a list of their classes, and I went, oh, journalism, that looks like fun. I like sports, and I thought I liked writing a little bit, and went in there, and it was a bit of a zoo. It's not nearly the program it is now, but they sent you out on a 2-week practicum and actually went to the Now, which was in New West, and they worked for Howard, Tsumura. So when I was 19, which was a couple of years ago, started that, and have kind of remained ever since.
So you were working for Howard. He was the editor, and then he
was the sports editor, and I was his one staff member.
There you go, dynamic duo. We call it.
He was a dictator. He didn't. He seems like it. He seems I'm not like gonna lie. I hope he's gonna watch this. I carried him for a lot of his career. I just like that to be known.
So the two of you worked.
It wasn't easy. I wasn't easy. It wasn't pretty, but I think that's enough.
I believe it. Well, you know what? It worked out for both of you. So you end up being there. What happens after that?
Howard went to the province, and he was like, man, it's great here. You got to come here. And I was very happy at the Now, but he was on me, and I thought, okay, well, I'll send in a resume. And those guys would phone every so often asking for numbers or asking for help with something. And I got a phone call came through from the sports desk from a man named John Fuller, who used to be the assistant sports editor. And he said, hey, would you come down for an interview? And I thought he was kidding. But I went down anyway and ended up getting hired. I was a desker one night a week. I was a copy editor on Saturday nights while I was still working at the Now. And then in 96, I'm telling my age badly. In 96, I got hired on full time.
And so what was your responsibility to cover in 96?
96, we had like 35 people. And I was excited to get BC junior football. And everybody had something. And that was, I think, the last thing left standing. And I was all grabbed onto it and was really excited to have that. So it was a very different time.
Yeah, no kidding. So we're talking 24 years ago. So over 96.
Don't say it like that.
When you started with junior football, what was the progression like? So obviously a lot of things have happened at the newspaper since then. You had the Grizzlies come in. You had a whole bunch of
came in, and they needed someone to do high school, so I did high school. And then in, I think it was 2003, 2004, they thought that I would be good for Canucks. So I went and did Canucks for a year and hated it and wasn't particularly good at it. And they went back the lockout year. I went and did Giants, and I've been doing Giants and a bunch of other things ever since then.
Right, and then you occasionally during that time you would do high school. Like I remember when I
would jump in and try and keep Howard out of trouble.
Right, and I was coaching high school back at Argyle back in the day. I think 03, 04, so around your Canucks time. And I remember my first Steve Ewen article. It was my first article in the province, and it was fantastic. What could be better than?
What could be better? You probably got it framed. It's probably right behind you.
I wish I had it. I would frame it. So it always kind of goes back to high school, right? You always had like a little bit of high school in you. You always had to write a little bit of high school, and so right now you're at the province and you're doing high school. You're doing Giants. I see some Canucks every once in a while.
I have everything that's not called Canucks. So we went from 35 people back in the day to 5 people.
Right.
So it's the newspaper industry has suffered a lot of its own wounds, and so it's a very different time.
So let's focus in on the high school aspect. So when did you start covering high school sport, and what kind of got you excited about it, and kind of like the things that have kind of kept you going in that?
When we started, I just thought the stories were all very interesting, and you felt like you were doing something for the community. You felt like you were doing something was making a difference, rather than going down and seeing if Kevin Bieksa was sore again at Canuck practice. You were having some positive influence on kids and able to tell some really good stories. And I've always been I never should have let them talk me out of giving up high school.
And so, like, what were some of the stories that kind of got your mind really going throughout the years? What were some of the ones that you really enjoyed following and kind of got you excited every day?
I was fascinated by the girls basketball at Cap College back in the day, the Aaron Gibbons teams and the Brett Westcott Mount Doug teams, and I'm the Thomas Haney teams and the Heritage Park teams, and I thought that was a great time for girls basketball in this province. Lindsay Brooke at Spectrum, and you just go up and down the list. I think a lot of the people that are coaching for you now, I think we're playing back to Ashley Burke. So yeah, I that was one of my favorite things to cover. The SFU clan back in the Michelle Hendry, Andrew Schneider days, the Nicola Hansen days. I think that was a lot of fun. Football provincials were always fun. Always got in trouble because I always referred to it as the frozen tundra of BC Place, because they never turned the heat on, and Larry Rita, the old football guy, would always get mad at me that I was making him look bad. But yeah, I think there was lots of fun. Seeing like John Cornish play for STM in football, and Calvin McCarty play at STM, and Brett Anderson play at Terry Fox. It was a chance to see people, and it was always people that were very interested in doing media, and always weren't. You come across the pro people, they're bored of it, and they get, in their defense, they get asked a lot of dumb questions over and over again. I think somebody said to me, a guy named Tom Hawthorne is one of the best writers I've ever worked with, was at the province, and he said the best events to cover are the events where you're the only media person there.
Right. People actually like, where is that guy? I want to talk to him. Where did he go?
Yes. Well, no, it's not even that. It's just that they're not bored, right? They're not getting the, people trying to stir stuff up, and you're not, like, they get a sense that you're there to tell stories and stuff. So yeah, it's, I still, yeah, if I go back, if I could go back and do it again, I wouldn't have given up high school.
Right. And so are there a couple stories that you had specifically written that you thought were very impactful over the years? Like, was there specific memories that you had? Okay, like when I wrote this article about this specific thing, it kind of really had an impact on me.
Kid named Curtis Augustus was playing for Paul Eberhardt at McNair, and he had some trouble academically. And I had said to him, hey, listen, I'm going to write this big glowing story. People are going to love you. Don't make me look foolish by getting in trouble in school. Right. And I had seen him a couple times, and they had played, and kind of, I said, asked him about his school and, how are things going and what's going on. And one night during the spring, I was at home, and I got a phone call at home, and it was like some sort of party. There was a lot of background noise, and it was Curtis Augustus. And he said, hey, I just wanted you to know, like, you had gotten after me about school. I just walked across the stage and got my grade 12 diploma. I just wanted you to know that. That was the end of the conversation. But that was a cool story that he thought enough that I guess I had pestered him that badly that he wanted me to know that he had in fact gone through with his school and finished things.
That's awesome. And you know what, you never know. It's kind of like in coaching, right? You never know when you are a part of something, and then before you know it, it actually made it. You say the same stuff to a bunch of different people, and then before you know it, somebody actually takes you seriously.
Yes.
And so,
yes.
So hearing that.
So thank you, Curtis Augustus, I know Curtis Augustus is a follower of the podcast, so I thank him right now for giving me a good story to tell on the podcast.
We'll take it. And then, so you end up working with Howard. What are some of the other people that you got to work with over the years that kind of had an impact on your career and your trajectory to now being one of the few remaining at the province?
I think there's names that people would know, the Jason Botchfords and the Tony Gallaghers and the Ben Kuzmas and Ed Willis. Ian McIntyre is a good friend of mine. He's great. But there was a lot of guys on the desk that people would know. Pete Driver, Dan Mullen, Bob Mercer was huge for me. I've been very lucky that a lot of talented people have taken me and said, hey, here's some stuff you need to know. And I've been very, very lucky to have those type of people. So
when writing, let's say I want to start writing for sports.
Don't. I would stay with what you're doing.
Let's just say I decided, What are some of the,
let's just say you got hurt and decided you wanted to do that. Okay.
Well, we're having employment issues.
There you go. Here you go. That's another podcast.
Right.
That's a whole other.
Let me ask you this question. One of the biggest issues I'm seeing in media right now is the lack of good writing, to be honest with you. One of the things I always got from you and I always got from Howard was trying to find a unique perspective to tell a unique story that, maybe people wouldn't have heard about. And, I've learned new words reading your stuff over the years. And I'm like, this is not even a word. And then I got to look it up and it is a word because we're describing very, very specific things that kind of grow a narrative that you're trying to portray. Where'd you get that thought process behind it all? Obviously, you probably were taught it when you were in school, but the importance of actually putting that together.
A lot of what I learned was from Howard. A lot of the storytelling and going out and finding things, and I just think it's stuff to keep yourself interested. I think it's very easy to be average at this, and to copy off yourself. And I think I find myself Googling myself and going, hey, that's a really neat sentence. Make sure I didn't read that. I like that sentence. Make sure I haven't written that before. And I think that's something to keep striving to keep yourself interested. So I think that's something that I've been lucky that I've fallen into that.
So over the years, as things have changed at the paper, obviously, people aren't buying as much of the hard copy paper as they used to, and now they're doing it online. What are some of the things you've had to adjust to over time?
I think you're cognizant about keywords and SEO and all those things that you talk about with your company, where if you can make a Bonnie Henry reference in a story right now, it's a good thing. It'll get you some extra clicks, right? If you can do those type of things, I think you have to be smart. I think that's what Jason Botsford did way better than any of us. I think he understood Twitter and understood social media, and I think I've tried to follow some of his lead.
Well, the adjustment is non-stop with what you're doing, right? So you have to learn that stuff, and you got to.
We've done it so poorly too. I think the newspaper industry really didn't understand how big social media was going to be, and now we're kind of caught and we're chasing, and I don't know if we're ever going to catch up in time.
Have you tried to make a run at getting Bonnie Henry on the show?
Trying to get Bonnie Henry on your show. I can put in a call. I know a couple people.
I'm ready. She's on my list. I have a list here. I got a list. Bonnie's right there.
Yes. That's a name we didn't know in February.
No, and you know what? She's had a huge impact on our products, but also on sport. I mean, realistically, at some point, we're going to have to get back to normal. And, I just read a thing from Adam Silver saying, if the virus shows up, we're going to have to shut it down again. And it's like, I don't know, man. 40% of your league doesn't believe in getting vaccinated like the rest of the world. 40% doesn't do vaccines. So what are you going to do when it happens next year or the year after or the year after?
It's a fascinating time. I think we're in a time that, they're going to be writing books about this little 10 or 12 or whatever month period it is. And, you and I are going to be old and crotchety and have people coming out, oh, what was 2020 like, right? And
not the best.
We're going to say we don't remember.
So over your time, if you could go back and give a younger version of Steve, you're still young, a younger version of Steve.
Thank you for that. That was a good
some advice. What would you tell him?
All right, I think just to worry about the story. I think I think I've calmed down a lot. I think in terms of goals and things, I think I'm more comfortable in yourself. I think that's the thing I think I would tell myself is that you're gonna be okay. Don't stress about where things are going. You're gonna get there and have some confidence.
Well, that's a big one. I think people need to take that to heart. That's not just for you. I think that's for everybody. I mean, just keep going, grind it out. It'll work out.
Just keep going forward, right? As long as you're going forward, you're gonna be fine.
One question I ask everybody is what major adversities you had to overcome to get to the place you are today?
The cancer question.
You obviously had a major bout with cancer.
The cancer question was coming.
I had a minor bout with cancer, as you can tell.
There are no minor bouts with cancer.
I had a minor one. We're gonna. Yours is a little more serious. So
they're all bad.
Right. But give us like what that kind of did for you, and the perspective it kind of changed
Yeah.
in your head to keep you, appreciative of life and the opportunities that you have.
I was diagnosed with a solitary plasmacytoma in my T2 in October of 2010. And one thing that cancer's given me is the ability to say a lot bigger words than I could have said before.
I don't know what you just
I
said.
can actually spell solitary plasmacytoma, which I think is a gift now. I was diagnosed in 2010. Ended up needing eight back operations at that point. So I'm fused from C5 to T6. The cancer came back. I did 6 months in hospital. Cancer came back again in, let's call it February of 2017. And I had a stem cell transplant in July of 2017. So I am a lifelong cancer patient. I'm a big deal at the cancer agency. I don't mean to brag, but you can go down there and drop my name and you could probably get like a free bag of chips or something.
Okay. Yeah. So you had to overcome that and go back to work, and you have to, you have to find a way to persevere and keep going. What's that like?
I think my wife and I have both done a very good job of staying positive and moving forward, and I think it's okay to have your pity parties, but not to live in them too long. I think it's a hard thing. I think I did 2.5 months at GF Strong Hospital, which is a rehab hospital in Vancouver, and hospital is bad. Rehab hospital is a lot of people realizing that things aren't going to get better for them. There's a lot of angry people there, and you really had to persevere to kind of get through it. I had to learn to walk again at 40, which I wouldn't recommend. So it's been a challenge, but again, I think it's given me. Cancer makes my wife sad, so cancer's rotten. Simple as that. But I've learned things. I think it's given me a self-confidence where if you can get through this, well, you can certainly file a story by 4 o'clock, or you can certainly finish your Christmas shopping, right? Like you can do stuff. So I think it's all about framing, and I think it's all about understanding that you can do things, and yeah, it's largely rotten, but I think you need to find the positives in it. Yeah, we've met so many brilliant people, and the whole experience, everyone we met, all the doctors, nurses, x-ray technicians, cleaning people have been superb. And I can't say enough about being sick in BC and how lucky we've been.
Well, I've always had spent some time in hospitals, and I found there's some angels that work there. I mean,
they're a completely different breed of people than.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. So
yeah.
we've so many people have done so much for us that I think that's part of getting better is I got a lot of people to thank still.
The one thing, my brother passed away from cancer, and when he passed away, it kind of gave me like a kick that like you got to get going here. It's time to do some stuff. And it's funny that you mentioned, if you can get over this, you can get over anything. And that's kind of like my mentality on the same thing, where like if I can get over my brother passing from the same issue, like I can find a way to figure out, whatever else I got to figure out, like, deadline at 4 o'clock, whatever it is, like, let's keep going. Now you're back, you're writing it right now with the paper. Things are going, as well as they can at the moment. Health is looking a little
things are going good for me. Things aren't going that great for the paper. Let's be clear.
Right. Yes.
I'm super.
That's what I'm talking about. We're not talking about the paper. So you're doing well.
Yes.
Talk about, the things that you're looking forward to once we do get going again, and the things that you're actually going to be excited to get back to normal.
I'm excited just to see what normal looks like and how different normal is and what people do. And I think this is an opportunity for, obviously, the people that have been touched medically by this or had families that have been affected medically. This is a tragedy. I think those of us who've not had those issues yet, this is a chance for a reset and to realize what's important. And I mean, my mom lives 20 minutes away in Cloverdale, and it's important, that I would wait. Oh, I'll see her next week. Oh, I'll see her next week. Well, all of a sudden you couldn't see her. So I think it's important to look at those things and appreciate going to the pub with a buddy and telling lies, and appreciate all these things. I think it's a chance, like it's been taken away from us. When we get it back full time or on a more regular basis, I think for me, I'm going to appreciate all those things more. I appreciate slow pitch softball, which I'm bad at and can't hit the ball out of the infield, but I'm going to appreciate it a lot more than I did 6 months ago.
Yeah, for sure. let's focus in real quick on basketball. So high school basketball, obviously, it's kind of my passion.
Yes.
I've seen you on the boy side and the girl side in the gyms all the time.
Yes.
Talk about the magnitude of how big it is a deal in our province for high school at the provincial championships. Like, you don't see this anywhere else, and you don't see the spectacle.
It's I think it's one of the 5 or 6 great events in this province. Those 2 BCs, those 2 weeks of the BCs, and put it up against anything I've ever been to. I think people mock me, but the Salmon Arm Mount Doug girls final of what, 2000 or maybe 2001, whenever the Aaron Gibbons final was. That's one of the 3 or 4 best events I've ever been to, and I've done Olympics and I've done hockey playoffs and I've done all sorts of